FPV for me is my favourite way to fly radio-controlled aircraft, or actually drive radio-controlled cars, boats, or whatever. It is something that I got into in the very early days, and my first ever set of goggles was something I ordered from Hobby King way back in the day. Those very simple, basic Predators unlocked an entire new world for me, and I continue to fly FPV to this day. I fly all sorts of stuff, but for me, my first love, if it's a beautiful morning and the air is still and the sun is shining, is to get out a plane or a wing with an FPV HD system in it and fly around. It's the closest you can get to that feeling of floating and flying that you sometimes get in those wonderful dreams. And for me, it's incredibly relaxing and very fun to do. FPV was one of those things that I got into almost by accident. I'd seen lots of other people do it. It was starting to become the new exciting thing in the hobby. And I had a little bit of a play with a couple of things. Back in those days, it was very complicated to get a system that worked reliably together. And then FactShark came out with their bundles aimed at newer pilots. And that's what I started out with. For me, though, the first experiences with FPV weren't fantastic. I found that I got a little bit travel sick. So at the end of a very short flight, I was feeling a bit hot and sweaty and felt like I was going to throw up on my trainers. However, as time went on, I got better and better at it. And then with the advent of things like on-screen displays and information about what was going on, it became a really fun way to fly. Transitioning from line of sight into FPV wasn't a simple process. A lot of the things that you rely on as a line-of-sight pilot in terms of how high you are, how fast you're flying, how close you are to that object, your orientation, all those different things that you can just see by looking at the model disappear and are presented differently when you are flying FPV. So there is that learning curve that you have to go to. But I'm so glad I stuck with it, including in the early days taking a lawn chair to the field to sit down so that I didn't fall over. For me, I think the most memorable FPV experience was probably the first time I tried HD FPV. I tried with the Connex systems and other in the past and really struggled with it. And then I tried the DJI HD system, with the first commercial available mass-produced system like that, and was blown away at the clarity and very quickly got spoilt by flying in HD FPV, being able to see individual leaves on trees and blades of grass as I flew past it all. The biggest challenge that I found coming into FPV from being before then a line of sight only pilot was that ability to gauge my height, speed, direction, distance, how close I was to that particular object just by looking out of the camera. Obviously things like on-screen displays have dramatically improved that, so now I can see exactly how high I am because my altimeter is on the on-screen display. I can see how fast I'm going. I can see how far away I am too, and how much battery I've got left. So all of that stuff is a lot easier now. But initially, I found it really tricky, along with that kind of vertigo feeling that I still get with VR goggles, unfortunately. But by persevering, I overcame all of that. And for me, it's the funnest part of the hobby. In terms of how long it took me to get comfortable at flying FPV, it didn't take me very long at all. If you are a gamer and you're used to that kind of first-person view flying on simulators or flying planes in different games and things, it very quickly starts to become second nature to you. If you've tried a simulator and you can fly it in a simulator, guess what? You're going to be able to fly in FPV. FPV is very simple to fly in because the orientation of the craft is also always the right way around with your sticks, so you can never get in a situation where you think you're in one orientation and you're the other, and you flick the roll control in exactly the wrong way that puts you into a spin of death. I think if I'm starting out now with FPV and I had none of the equipment, I would probably go for one of the all-in-one kits that are currently available from people like BETAFPV. You've got your goggles, your radio, you've got a little quad in there, usually the whoop style. You have a number of batteries, even a little USB-based charger as well. And they all work out the box. They're set up, they tend to be tuned very well too, and they're designed for newbies in that they're pretty robust pieces of kit. So you can smash them around the lounge, or you can stick them in the bushes in the back garden, wherever it is you're learning to fly, and it will take all of the knocks. And then when you move up to something a little bit more impressive, a bit more powerful, all those skills that you've learned already can go with you. I know for me, using one of those smaller whoop style quads was really important to me in my early days. I came into the quad part of the hobby from helicopters, and being able to learn a skill called nose in, which is where you can hover with the helicopter pointing nose towards you, is a really tricky thing to get mastered, or it was for me. And using a little beginner whoop style quad allowed me to sort that out over one winter, and then when spring came around I found I could do it on the helicopter. In terms of what I am to the community, I have no idea. I have an idea of the impact I've had on some people who've come up to me in shows and shook my hand to tell me what an impact that they've had, and that's always incredibly great to hear. My videos are aimed at those who are getting into the hobby or trying to figure out about the new technology. I don't use clickbait, I don't use controversy, it isn't replacing a day job. I do this because I absolutely love it, and I spend a lot of time trying to help pilots figure out what the heck is going on with their equipment, and hopefully by watching my videos they can dramatically reduce the amount of trial and error that comes with the setup of lots of the open source based technology that we all rely on for big parts of the hobby now. If I help people, that is kind of what I'm doing here. I'm showing my love of the hobby, and if I can help somebody stop pulling their hair out to try and fix a particular problem, then I'm a happy guy. In terms of my vision for the future, I think it's a pipe dream at this point, but I would love there to be less regulation. The explosion of the hobby with the multi-rotor and particularly the racing side and the availability of things like the DJI systems have unfortunately meant that it has become a bit of a pariah and has attracted lots of the wrong kind of media attention, and now every light in the sky that's seen isn't reported as a UFO or little green men coming down to probe your cattle. It's somebody with a drone doing something they shouldn't do. Unfortunately, that means that we are in the middle of lots of new legislation, and that's not going to stop the people that want to use the technology in a nefarious, illegal way. However, for those of us that want to retain their hobby and fly legally, it just makes everything an awful lot harder and more expensive. My life without FPV would look very much like it was before FPV came around. I was making videos and helping people with radio control stuff before FPV was even a thing. I've been doing this a very long time, so I'd probably still be flying line of sight, going to the field, flying with friends, trying new stuff, optimizing and setting up flight controllers and doing all those other things. However, with FPV, it unlocks a complete new dimension. If you have an opportunity to try FPV, if you never have, then go and give it a go. It is incredible. And my own experience here is that everybody I've ever given a go at FPV have taken the goggles off and told me what an amazing experience that was. And that's whether it was somebody who was 8 years old or 80. So if you have a chance and you haven't tried it yet, do give it a go. Fly responsibly, fly safely, and fly with consideration for other people, pets and property, and you'll have a fantastic time.